Yeah.
Right there.
Hello?
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, that's good. All right, man. Well, let's start with the toast. Cheers.
Hey,
Happy to be here.
thank you. Shawn Taylor, Mr. YogaLab. Thanks for coming, man. Thanks for coming to jump in the small gap there. For those that don't know, you run YogaLab, which is part of the building here. And 3 years now? How long?
Yeah, so it's been, we hit our 3-year mark in July. And so we're almost at the 4-year mark, which is crazy, dude. It has gone by.
With one COVID year in the middle, so it's like a leap year.
Well, it just seemed like, just months ago that we came up here and looked at the space for the first time, and then now what has happened has just been, it's been phenomenal. It's been such a crazy journey so far. So I feel very blessed to be in this incredible building. This place is like, it's my second home, and I spend a lot of time here, like you do.
Like I do. You've
No one
slept
spends
here
as
a few
much
times.
time. Nobody spends as much time here as we do.
No,
I would say.
Not even the rats. Not that we have rats here, by the way, but like if we did, we'd be more. But for like this, we're obviously shooting this in my restaurant at Mother, the restaurant, on top of a sea container. For those that haven't been here. So for those that don't know you, 21 years practitioner of yoga, student of yoga, but you started as a snowboarder.
Yeah, correct.
As a professional or professional and coach.
Yep, and I worked as a coach. And it's interesting because snowboarding came to me pretty late in my life. I graduated high school. I'm from New Orleans originally, and I moved to Florida when I was 5. Went to all my school years, kindergarten through 12th grade. Grew up skating and surfing in Florida, and snowboarding was one of those things that had always been like just the dream of skating and surfing, because you're strapped to it. There's unlimited resource. It's not like you're waiting out in a lineup for a set to roll through where there's 100 dudes out, 4 waves that come in. It's unlimited. You ride chairs all day. So like the opportunity to spend time perfecting the craft it's a lot easier because it's just all set up for you to do so. And so I spent a good, I would say, 16 years of my life really dedicated to being on the snow. Couple of endless winters, like surfers chase the endless summer dream, but snowboarders do the endless winter thing. So I'd spend time up at Mount Hood in Oregon. I spent some time over in Hintertux, Austria, and anywhere where there'd be snow. I've never snowboarded in the Southern Hemisphere yet, but I still will definitely make that happen at some point. Yeah. But just before you move on for that, I mean, there's a flow state right there. Hey. Yeah.
High risk, skill set required. You're going to hit these flow states. So you would have experienced a lot of that in snowboarding, where you just get in the zone.
Yeah, and it's like I said, because of the nature of riding down a mountain, if you go from the very top and you ride all the way down to the bottom, that can take you, depending on where you are, that can be a 20-minute ride. So there's plenty of time for you to get in the zone and in the flow in that arena, because it's so laid out for you in that context. So I moved out to Colorado, and that's where I started snowboarding, was in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. I was going to a school out there called Colorado Mountain College to study exercise science and ultimately move into physiotherapy. That's where my career path was leading me at the time. I've always been interested in the human body and always wanted to pursue that deeper. My whole family is in the medical field, and so it was kind of a natural thing that I was led towards my whole life, is to get into helping people. My main thing that I want to do is help people rehabilitate injury, because I saw so much injury in snowboarding, from one of my best friends snapping his femur in half to a lot of collarbones. Broken collarbones are pretty common in snowboarding. If you do it long enough, you'll see them, wrists, knees, concussions, you name it. Like people die all the time. I've lost several good friends to snowboarding, and it's a serious. You can get yourself into some serious situations.
So needless to say, you sustained a lot of injury
Yeah.
from snowboarding.
And so it started like, like I was healthy and strong when I first started snowboarding. So my body had never really been beat up other than like playing soccer and skating, but nothing really like the crashes that you take when you're on a snowboard because of the speed involved and like the size of the jumps. And, if you hit objects going that fast, like a tree or rocks, anything like that, the stakes are a lot higher, So, but yeah, I would say pretty much every joint, all the major joints, specifically my shoulders, my knees, my ankles, a little bit of neck, and then I broke this wrist really, really bad. Had bone grafts in my wrist.
You never thought about doing a safer sport like cage fighting or something like that?
I don't know, man. Like that was part of
that was
part of the allure.
That was your thing, man. Yeah.
Snowboarding was the danger again, which I was really unaware of it at the time. But like putting myself in those situations were things that were probably for the first time in my life making me present. And understanding that there's this different world out there that I hadn't really experienced until I'd gotten on snow,
Yeah, and that's why I say about the flow state, because I'm running my little course, right? And one of the chapters, and there's only 10, I want to be succinct, and I didn't want any dross there. One of the whole chapters in holistic health is flow states. Let's learn about it, let's study it, and find your way in. And yours was in through snowboarding. But this is the only way you're going to feel at an optimum state, like you said. And I remember when I was obsessed by playing guitar, right? And there was this amazing guitarist, and I had no concept of how to play guitar well. I was really not aware. And I asked him, "What are you thinking of when you're playing that amazing, when you're riffing like that?" And he just looked at me blankly, and he kind of thought about it, and he went off. And I thought about that for years and years and years. Like, why couldn't he answer that? He must be. Is he thinking scales? Is he thinking? And later I realized he's not thinking anything, man. He's in a flow state. The whole point of that is that you're observing at best.
Yeah, and music that's another area where it's a language, man. And when you're in that state of mind, it's less about what you're doing and more about letting something else just happen, And I got a lot of that definitely out of snowboarding, and then that ultimately led me into a yoga practice. I had people my entire lives. The first person that ever really introduced me to yoga is my buddy Cosmo, who's been out here a few times. No, he's only been out here once. Sorry, Cosmo, if you're tuning in. I know you'll tune into this, but Cosmo was probably my friend that introduced me to the practice first. He was probably the first yogi that I'd ever met. And but then along the year, like just along my own journey through life, like people were always telling me that they're like, "Oh my God, you should do yoga. You should try it. It's something that I think that you'll love." So I always loved stretching, and I loved keeping my body, healthy and mobile. And so when I really found the yoga practice, I connected to it instantly. It was just like, oh my God, why haven't I been doing this forever? But with yoga, like a lot of other things, it comes to you, I feel, when you need it, or when you're ready. It's like, I always ask my students, I'm like, do you really feel that you found this practice, or did this practice come into your life for a reason, and everybody's kind of on their own clock as far as that's concerned, People start when they're in their teens, some people start when they're in their 50s, and I don't think there's really a right or wrong time to begin. I think it just begins when it's time, and
but it was effective for you for recovering from injury, because as we've already said, you were pretty banged up.
Yeah.
And so you found on just that purely physical level that it was rehabilitating your body.
Yeah. It was so like when I'd finished snowboarding, I moved into the snowboard industry as a team manager, and so I got to really keep doing what I was doing. I got to still travel quite a bit, but the pressure was off to, try to keep up with where the sport was going, which is if you weren't, young and healthy and easy, capable of bouncing back from injury pretty quick, for me, it was more like it all of the risk and the craziness where it was going to me started to lose its luster a little bit. It just became more scary than it was fun. So when I transitioned out of that and into a role in the industry as a team manager, then all of a sudden it got fun again, and I didn't have to, I could just go and ride and do whatever I wanted to do, without having to put myself at any risk to make somebody that you were riding for happy, And so with that job came sitting behind a desk, which is pretty much the worst thing you can do as a human. And, so many people are led into a life of sitting behind desks, and we're just not designed to do that. So that was also starting to take its toll on my body. I ended up moving to Santa Cruz, California in 2005 to take a job with Santa Cruz Surfboards. And so again, I found another great career path for me and doing something that I love to do, which is surfing. And, but at the same time, I was behind a desk, so I was behind a desk most of the day. I'd go out and surf as much as I possibly could, sometimes twice a day. Sometimes I'd go, a couple of days without getting in the water. And so I needed something. I was looking for something at the time, which I just really wasn't sure what it was. And then this guy moved next door to me. I was living in this duplex, and this dude moved in next door to me named Chris White. What's up, Chris? Oh, who's now one of my just a homie for life. One of my closest friends back in Santa Cruz, and he then introduced me into the Bikram practice. And if you don't know what Bikram is, it's 40 degrees. It's done in a 40-degree, 105 degrees Fahrenheit room with 40% humidity. And back in the day when I first started, it was hardcore. Like, it was super disciplined. The teachers were pretty full on. There were a lot of things that, you weren't supposed to do in the practice. It was a very like super strong disciplined approach. And for me at the time, that's what I loved about it. I was like, this is amazing. 'Cause I'd tried a lot of different styles of yoga up until that point, but it wasn't really until I connected with Bikram yoga that I fully committed myself to a regular practice, and I fell in love with it, and then that's when all of this injury and pain that I felt in my joints, it started to unravel itself. And pretty quick. It didn't take long, man. It took 6 months, and just 6 months of regular practice, I was like, oh my God, man, this is crazy how
I mean, all yoga is going to heal the body, but do you think Bikram is probably at the top of the pack because of the heat? You get the heat shock proteins, and because you hear that a lot about Bikram, people physical injuries being.
Yeah, and the heat, that's the first time I'd ever heard about heat shock proteins was from a book called I can't remember what it was. It was written by a doctor, but it was about people putting themselves in extreme environments. And this guy was a medical doctor. He did trips to Everest, and he was in all of these. I think he did some stuff in space as well, like worked on astronauts but he was talking about all of the different things that the human body goes through in different extreme environments like that. But when he got into talking about the desert, that's when heat shock proteins came in, and that was the first time that I'd ever even heard about it. And I was like, whoa. And it happened at 105 degrees. Like, that was sort of the magic number for heat shock proteins to start to repair. Right. And so heat definitely is super beneficial, as we all know. Like, the science is there now to show us that heat is a great thing for the human body. It's definitely not for everyone. Like, not everybody's going to connect to a practice like that, but I definitely am a big believer in any practice that utilizes heat into the mix. And we every day we get older, and especially when we start getting to the age that we are, I'm in my mid 40s now, and my body needs heat to start to open up. It's a fast forward button to me feeling good that day. But I definitely feel that the heat was a huge contribution to my healing process.
It's going to help, isn't it? I mean, all aspects of the immune system work better with heat as well, and funny enough, it is the immune system that's going to repair scar tissue and all that sort of stuff. But obviously there's a lot more to it. It's that mobility with the breath, with the alignment of everything. I mean, it's pretty full on. So so you found that you started to physically heal from the yoga practice. You fell in love with it because you dedicated yourself to it, and then obviously the act of transformation started to kick in for you through yoga.
And that really, the first few months I was just getting my bearings in a asana practice, like just figuring out how to keep my body balanced and which muscles to use when and which muscles to relax. And so the first 3 to 6 months of anyone's yoga journey is just orienting themselves with poses, with asana, and like getting familiar with the way that their body is going to feel in each shape. So I think that's a pretty normal part of people's journeys. And then I feel that the breath kind of comes in to play. Like once you sort of figure out where your body's supposed to be, then you start figuring out how to breathe. And then once you've got the breathing and then the pose is linked up, like so much of it's going to start to unfold from that alone, because then all of a sudden you're thinking less about what your body's doing. And then you're getting more drawn into an experience that for a lot of people, it's the first time they've ever experienced anything, any type of harmonious movement, breath integration, to where you drop into this state of mind, like the flow state, that if you've never felt that before, it's gonna change a lot of people's perspective on life. Because then again, you're like, oh my God, there's this layer of life that I've been missing out on this entire time, and it's because of what goes on in people's minds.
Yeah.
So yoga at its essence is, if you look at the Yoga Sutras, the path that's been laid out by Patanjali, who is one of the great sages that laid out the Yoga Sutras, which has the 8 limbs and the Ashtanga yoga system. When you read that book, the first thing that he says is, now we start the practice. And then the second thing that he says is, this practice is designed to quiet your mind. Like in a nutshell, that's what the whole practice is about mind training. And mind, I don't like to really call it control, but it's more of mental awareness. And because it's pretty hard, like you can control your mind somewhat. Like you got a little bit of, people would disagree with me on this, but or maybe I'm not far enough yet in my own yogic path to have full control over my mind, but I do have way more control of it than I've ever had in my life, and it's a great feeling. Yeah. I know that most of the time, what's going on up here is nonsense. It's bullshit. But to go back to the transformational experience of yoga, once I got breathing and asana dialed, then all of a sudden I really started to hear what my teachers were saying. I was hearing it on a physical level: put this foot here, engage this muscle here, move this bone this way. But then there was this whole other message that I was missing, because I was so caught up with just trying to get my body and my breathing right. And then I started to hear the philosophy. And then, man, oh man, that's when the journey just went to a whole different place.
Yeah, and this is, my whole thing as a holistic practitioner is running with my definition that health is the freedom of expression on a physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual level. And they all have to be accounted for. You can't forget your social game or your emotional game and then just play that. You know what I mean? And yoga is the classic form, because every one of those is powerful, isn't it? Obviously the physical, the emotional, mental, spiritual stuff's all there as well. Especially with a place like YogaLab, like you've done, your first objective was to create a community. Bang. Now you've got a connected social dynamic. And with, like you said, with the awareness work and with the breath work, it's a mental game as well. But what about the spiritual aspect? Because that's such a slippery fish to get, when we start talking spirituality, it's such a difficult concept to tackle.
And even, mentioning it to some people will put them off, because they may not really understand what spirituality even means.
Plus they've seen a lot of hypocrisy, man. A lot of people, especially Australians, they call bullshit early. When they see someone talking the spiritual game, wearing the beads and everything else, but they know for a fact, man, you lent my lawnmower 6 months ago, never brought it back. When I got it back, it was wrecked. And I mean, you know what I mean? They start to judge it that way. But what's your sort of interpretation of spiritual health and spirituality?
Well, you know, in a nutshell, it's connecting to yourself, and in connecting to just the one source of energy that we know exists, that science tells us is everywhere. It's inside this microphone. It's in every little, you know, everything that we see and everything that we see in life. There's an energy that's making all of this happen, and it's hard to hard to deny that, you know. And I rarely ever use the word God when I teach. I think it's just been, you know, it's been misused so much over the years, but it's a perfect word to. It really truly is a wonderful word to spell out what it is that we're experiencing, you know. But you can call it universe, you can call it cosmos, you can call it the divine, you can call it the source. I mean, I've got a lot of different things that I call it, but it's really, when it's all said and done, it's getting people connected back to their essence, and which is just their energetic essence, which gets so lost by what's going on up here, you know. Anxiety, depression, distraction, overstimulation. There's so many things in modern times that lead people down a path of suffering that is preventable, and it's quite easy to get yourself out of it if you want to get out of it, and if you have a disciplined approach to how you're going to do it, you know. So yoga, the thing that I really love about yoga is it introduces them to a spiritual practice from their physical body, and then you use that as the canvas now to start moving inwards a little bit deeper, because you got to look after your physical body, or you're gonna start falling apart, you know. And it's going to make doing the work of the mind a lot easier for somebody if they've got a strong, sound physical body first. Because, you know, asana was designed originally so you could just go like this.
Yeah.
You know, so you could sit still and with a straight spine and meditate. And so for I guess the approach that I use is like taking people that have really busy minds. This is sort of the way that I teach is really designed for most people, I would say, in society these days, that have a super busy mind. And the way that I think is a quick, easy way to stop the chatter is to get their muscles working. You know, and as soon as somebody's muscles start working, then all of a sudden you've got their attention to begin taking them on the journey. You know, because once your muscles start working really hard, then you got to breathe. There's no way of sustaining that unless you can get your breath in check. And then it's also about teaching people when to pull back too. Go, okay, if, you know, it usually happens, people will start chasing breath or getting their breath gets out of control, and then it's encouraging people then to go, okay, take a knee, be humble enough to sit back and just go, here's where I am today, and be totally cool with it.
Which sounds great when you're hearing that from the yoga teacher sitting here, but that's so hard to do in a class, isn't it? Because your ego is like, it really is putting yourself into the fire, into the perfect environment to transform quickly.
Yeah.
And now you've got mirrors up everywhere, which is a whole nother level, isn't it? Because I remember reading about your story and stuff like that, and when you started yoga and you went to your first Bikram class, and you finally took your shirt off, you know, it was challenging, it was confronting, but you were already hooked, and it was a catalyst for you to go, okay, I'm going to transform.
Yeah, I'm all in. You know, it was like, and that's the truth, like with a Bikram practice, the less clothes you're wearing, the more comfortable you're going to be in that setting. But I used to I didn't want to take my shirt off at first, you know, just out of like, I just didn't, you know, I had my own, you know, self-image issues at the time that I've since, you know, everybody's still, you know, I still deal with my own shit all the time, but it was probably the first time that I got really comfortable just going, you know what, like, here's who I am, and I'm gonna learn how to love it and be totally cool with it. And it was having to stare at a mirror was a really powerful thing for me, because it's something that I never really wanted to do, you know, and it's still an issue for a lot of people. And even though we've got mirrors in the studio right now, like 98% of our classes, you don't look at them. They're in the background, but now that they're there, people can use them. And I have people come up and they're like, I'm so glad those mirrors are in there, because now when I'm doing this or that, I can finally see how wonky my alignment was, and now my alignment's changing. My alignment's getting a lot more where it should be. And so the mirrors are a really, really, really helpful thing, and not everybody's stoked on them, believe me. Like, there was some resistance to them first when they came in, but the resistance generally comes from something that deeper that's going on, that there might be an opportunity for somebody there at some point. You know, whenever the time is right for them, they might have a profound shift by being able to turn around, see their reflection, and learn how to love what they see back. And, you know, that's the ultimate goal, is to teach people proper self-connection, self-love, and so they're ripping as a human being, you know, like, so they go out in life and they're just flourishing and thriving, and like that's the whole point, you know? It
is the whole point, and that's my philosophy. Like we were saying before, do you ever stop the mind? Can you ever control the mind? For me, it's like, no, because we're not the mind, we're awareness. The mind is the mind. It's but we're awareness, and we can control awareness. We can take our awareness from this negative thought pattern of ourselves and place it onto another. You know, that's why yoga is so great. If nothing else, at least you can take your awareness to the breath, and hold it there, and then let the practice transform you. But what interests me about you too is because you run philosophy classes up here, and you're like me. You listed Alan Watts as one of your favorites.
Love him.
Beautiful, elegant speaker. Terence McKenna.
Yeah, another one of my favorites.
So you're showing some
genius.
of your...
Just a genius.
Yeah. What do you talk about in your philosophy classes? Obviously, it's going to be yoga-based.
Yeah, you know, but I also pull a lot of inspiration from the modern teachers as well, because there's so many great, incredible modern philosophers. And what the modern philosophy is teaching is basically just they're just bringing the old ancient philosophy back into the forefront, but making it more relevant to what's happening.
Yeah, a little fresher
today, you know. But you know, honestly, when I teach, I would say the approach is all around getting people recentered and reconnected to themselves. If you look at the practice in a nutshell, like I've said, it's about mind understanding your mind and getting a grasp on your mind. And so I would say a lot of the philosophy that I teach in class is really around the first layer and the first step of that, which is just creating the awareness. Just so many people don't realize how much they're thinking until they can finally learn how to take the first simple step back and just say to them, understand when they're thinking, just go, oh my God, I'm thinking right now. Like, my mind is going nuts. As soon as you can make that first distinction, then this huge step in the path has now been taken. It's like the first biggest step is for people to then step back and go, wow, oh my God, I've never noticed that ever in my life. And it's crazy how many people out there haven't made that first step. And so that's our job as teachers, and you know, like, is to first help people make that distinction. Just go, look, you're not all that stuff that's going on up in here. You're the furthest thing from it. And as soon as you can start to make that distinction, then your life is gonna shift.
It's huge,
incredibly. You know?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you sort of experience the observer and you start to, wow, these stories running in my mind. It's so important, because science tells us that the majority of that mind chatter is negative cognitive distortions.
Yeah.
You know, like, taken on board from the age of 2 to 4. I mean, what the fuck? You got no chance. You know what I mean? Like, we're taking on all these belief systems and stuff, and that's why I think we really do need some form of practice where we're cleaning that mirror, aren't we? We're bringing back teachers that are going to keep bringing you back to this core connected source.
Yeah, it's really about taking ownership and accountability of your whole world, you know, and starting with taking care of your body, get your body so it's moving like it should. You know, I just read some research that says 8 hours of inactivity is the equivalent of taking a depressant, which is crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I believe that.
Which is crazy. And I mean, I feel it if I don't move. I start turning into, you know, start turning into a jerk. You know, like if I don't move regularly, I feel it. It affects the way that I'm experiencing life, and everybody's got this incredible ability to take control of that and to take accountability and responsibility for how they're feeling and how they're showing up. And that's really what the aim of the yoga practice is in a modern context. You know, life has changed so much since a lot of these texts were written. But even though life has changed, a lot of the teachings are still equally as relevant as they have been for thousands of years.
Yeah, which is why we need new teachers to reinterpret it into a modern way, because like you say, the core essence of the teaching is exactly the same. But like you were saying before too, like us sitting in these chairs for 8 hours, I mean, that's now 10 times worse, isn't it, with the postural thing. But for a lot of people that are working in offices or whatever, and they're aware of that, what does it take to make the thing, okay, shit, I've got to move because I'm not feeling happy, I'm not feeling motivated, inspired, I haven't got that X factor going at the moment. You've got to move. But how do some people make that first decision?
I mean, I would say, like, hopefully they have a good friend near them that goes, hey, let's go, come try this with me. That's how it really, I mean, that's how I got sucked into it, really. Like, my buddy goes, hey, come in and try this out. And then that was exactly what I needed. But really, it usually starts, you know, what I see is people start coming into the practice a lot of the time after so much damage has been done. They, instead of listening to the first sort of signals that their body's telling them, they wait too long. But even in that case too, it's still not too late to start putting the pieces back together and getting them into a strong, healthy, and vibrant state of movement. It just takes, I don't know, I think it has to be a switch that flips on inside somebody where they know that it's time.
It's where friends are important, though, man. I always say, like, take an audit of your friends, you know, between, you know, the average sum of pros and cons of the 5 to 7 people you hang out with most. You know, you become the average. So we've got to look at people. You need at least 2 or 3 people in your main inner circle that are into health, into yoga, into something. But what do you guys do at first? You do a couple free classes to see if people, or do you do anything like that, or is it a trial offer or something?
Yeah, like we run a $69 month, which just gives them access to everything.
Yeah.
You know? Because like one class, honestly, will give you a little taste of it, but you got to do really 5 classes, I think, because especially if you're brand new to the practice, like one class you'll go in and again, it's some teachers have told me that it's an 80-year practice. It's an 80-year practice, you know, like, so one class might give somebody a taste of what's on tap.
Yeah.
But after 5 classes is when I see a real shift in people.
Yeah, well, one class is just looking at the cover of the book, isn't it?
It is.
Or the title. You know what I mean? Yeah, you're not even opening it up yet, really.
And most of the time, the people are just like, they're just doing their best to follow along, which is that's the advice I give somebody. When they're brand new, I'm like, go in the back or go in the middle so you can see everyone. And then listen and copy everyone. Just do the best that you can today and then come back as soon as you can for the next one. Like, as soon as you rip the Band-Aid off of the practice and you get the first one out of the way, it's like doing, you know, no one likes to not be good at stuff, you know, and yoga's it's not even about being good at it at all. It's more of like committing yourself to a path that can change your life. And it's not gonna, it's not going to happen in one class, you know. It takes a long time. Man.
It does, but you're doing something right, because I'm downstairs all the time, and I look up and I always look at these crowds of people come out of and there is a look, there is a glow, there is a satisfaction that you can't put your finger on, but everyone coming out, they feel like, wow, they've just worked, they've done something, but everyone's got this connected, healthy something coming out there. So I think one of the big things that is great about joining a school like yours is you've curated a culture and a community, and now there's a synergy. If you go and sweat and work hard against yourself with others, man, there's some synergistic effect there that you will get, you'll catch a light with.
It's so powerful to do it amongst a community of people, and like our community is so diverse. Like there's really all walks of life. We take anyone, man. Like we're an open door studio. Like we have everyone's welcome. You know, anyone that's willing to step foot in the door, it's like open arms, you know? And we get people through all different phases of their life. And like, again, when you see what you see of people leaving the room, that stoke that they're getting is because they've just spent an hour, most of the time, just out of their head and like connected into their breathing and their body. And what they've really done over the course of that class is they've just reconnected to themselves. It's like plugging yourself back into the wall of life, like the generator of life, which is life force, prana, the energy that you create in your body. It's just, you leave on cloud 9, man. It makes you high. It literally, serotonin, dopamine, all these wonderful things get released into your system, and you walk out of here like, people leave so much stuff behind.
It's just been interesting watching it from like downstairs and up, and there's so much of it is so subtle, you know what I mean? But you can see the posturing, you can see the connection with everyone coming out, and like the way, you know, people will just touch the shoulder of each other and stuff like that. It really is a practice of health in the sense of holistic, with when you see how people connect there. So it's an amazing thing, man. Like, you can't get that by reading a book or
No,
you know what I mean?
It takes, and I think a lot of it, there's a camaraderie after a challenging physical class where you know, if they're getting worked hard in that class and they're breathing and they're, you know, that's again, there's this real beauty of taking people to their limit. I mean, you can always tap out at any time, but there's always people that they're like, today's the day. I'm gonna go as far as I can. You know, we're not in there trying to kill anybody by any means, but we definitely want to create a scenario that allows them to grow and expand. I always just call it like dangling the carrot. So there's always going to be amazing guidance for people that are brand new. Those are the people that were really, at first, you know, like when someone's new, we're going to look after them right away, like making sure that their alignment's in check, making sure they're doing everything to the best of their ability for where they're at in their practice. But we always want to offer what's next for the intermediates and the advanced students as well. So like in an open levels class, you get a pretty big mix of people, and you can always offer a little bit more for those that want it. And then if somebody needs a little bit less, then they back up. You know, they pull the reins back a little bit. And the point is when they leave, they have that look you're talking about. And that's why I love yoga, man. Because when I walk out of a class, a really good, solid practice, I feel reset, man. I feel new, and I realize that so much of what happens up inside of our heads is just nonsense. All you need is an hour of connecting to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's
real again.
It
Life
the
is
game,
real.
Man.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, yoga is a Sanskrit word for union. So the question becomes, union connected to what? And obviously it's the source, connected back to that one ocean of consciousness, of life and everything like that. And that's a beautiful thing. So what about because what I'm really interested in is the breath work too, because we're talking about the mind and how man, once you get stressed, and most people are always in a sympathetic state of fight and flight to some degree. You know, most people are locked into it nowadays. They posture that way, and they stay locked in, and then their breathing becomes shallow. And then, of course, that keeps them locked into that state because the vagus nerve doesn't get pulled in now. And with yoga, that really riding that breath work is huge. Most of us are breathing like 12, 15, 20 times a minute or something. Whereas if we can experience bringing it down to 4 to 6 breaths a minute, all of a sudden your awareness now is on a different level. You guys would do a lot of that.
Yeah, definitely. Like I'm a big fan of Patrick McKeown's work with the Oxygen Advantage. He's one of the lead scientists on breath research right now. There's an enormous breath renaissance happening right now on the planet, which is it's phenomenal. And you know, we teach a pranayama class every Tuesday night to teach people all of these different techniques. There's a million different ways that you can breathe. And It is. It's trying to get people down to that 4 to 6 breaths per minute rate is where all the research is pointing to. That's the magic sweet spot. And like, what I trip out on is how when you look at nature and you look at all of the animals that live long lives, you know, like a tortoise, for example, they breathe, I think, like 1 breath a minute. And like, there's tortoises that can live to be 200 years old, you know?
Yeah, whereas a hummingbird is like spitting out, I don't know how many breaths.
Yeah, like a mouse too. Like a mouse breathes like, I can't remember how many breaths per minute, but whales breathe 4 breaths per minute. They live to be like 150 years old.
Wow.
Or, no, not even, I don't know, 1 breath every 4 minutes maybe for a whale. Because they take a breath, they go die. I don't know.
It's got to be.
I'm not a whale expert by any means, but I know that one of the reasons that they live so long is because they're breathing less. So there's less stress on all of the systems of the body. But breathing, it's always there, man. You've got it with you 24/7. It's there's some other research that I've seen within Patrick McKeown's work that says you can go from a state of sympathetic fight or flight down to parasympathetic within 4 minutes through just breath work. And like, there's medication that doesn't work that fast.
Now,
you know?
Nothing works like that. Nothing.
Yeah. So it's like, if you can teach people one skill through a yoga practice that's going to revolutionize their life and create more tranquility and peace in their life, it's breathing, you know? And it's like, it's so obvious. It's like, of course everyone knows that if you breathe slower and you take deep breaths that it's better for you, but nobody does it, you know? It's
yeah, and that's the key. You have to experience it. Like, if people do nothing else but like, okay, next time I get stressed, I'm going to program myself just to take my awareness to the breath and slow my breathing down to 4 breaths per minute for as long as it takes until I change my state. They'll find out that it only takes 2 to 3 minutes, and they're like seeing it from a complete different perspective instead of escalating. And that there is the greatest gift you can give someone, to go, wow, you actually have the power within. You just don't know the tools. You don't know what you got. Yeah.
It's crazy, man. I've started teaching both of my boys pranayama since they were, babies,
Wow.
and since they could understand what I'm saying. And, they don't do it with me anymore, but like, I'm hoping that those seeds that I've planted in them at some point in their life, they may come back and remember those times where like, oh yeah. But it's something that I do on a daily basis because I'm not immune to stress and running a business and, raising a family. And as you know, we're in the same exact world, that stress is a natural part of what we experience. But stress as well is a really powerful, it's a powerful ally. If you can channel it the right way, it's a really powerful energy that can be like utilized to create and to make some awesome stuff happen, So
yeah, you need it for growth, man. You've got to have it for growth. That's it. Yeah. And that's the thing, like especially with the spiritual path, you don't get to step off.
No, man, and it's
once you've started, it's like, oh shit, you can't unlearn certain things you've learned on that level. And
then another thing is like that people always need to remember is that life isn't it's not supposed to be easy, like if you really want to do whatever it is that you want to do in this lifetime, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be super hard. That's why I think I've been drawn into a really physical yoga practice, because I love that challenge. It puts me right in that space where I think creation and creativity lies, versus don't get me wrong, I love mellow practices too, and when the time is right, I would say most of the practice I do, I like to sweat and move, but if that's all you do as well, then there's going to be an imbalance. I think you've got to have the yin side of it as well. There's got to be meditation.
But you love hiking, you love nature, so you've got that yin-yang balance.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have a lot of yin and not too much yang.
Totally.
They don't put themselves to the edge. And like the modern understanding nowadays is, man, you've got to push yourself to the edge where your body thinks is potentially going to die almost, and then stay calm through that process, and then the growth really kicks in. Resilience grows. A lot of things happen.
I love it, man. I love taking students to that place in their practice, because so many of them have no idea how powerful they are and how much just amazingness they have inside of them until you kind of you just help draw it out. Like all we do when we teach is we're just trying to pull whatever we can out of the students, and I'm first and foremost always a student of yoga, and even when I teach, we're all in the same playing field. It's just when I'm in that teaching state of mind, I become their number one fan. Like, I'm your biggest fan if you're in my room, and I just want to see people pull the best out of themselves, and it's an awesome thing to get to do. I feel very, very blessed, and it never sucks to come into work.
Yeah, man, you're riding that wave, dude. You're probably the most enthusiastic guy I've met. You know what I mean? You truly do get joy from that. So you're there for them. You know, you want this to happen. And there is nothing better.
It's cool, man. It's so cool.
One for all for one, huh?
Yeah, man.
And so the other thing is you use a lot of beats. You're a DJ as well, Shantybot.
Yeah.
And you're really into the physics of the vibration of music and everything. So, I mean, you like to lay some beats down there as well.
Definitely, man. Music is, like we were saying earlier, it's a language. It's another, like in the context of a yoga practice, it's another layer that you add to the experience that brings all of it to life. And, there's teachers out there that would disagree and say that you should never have music in a yoga class, and I would agree on that as well. Like, there's times where I don't want any music, and I just want to focus in on breathing and focus in on the alignment and focus in on the words and things like that. They both serve a purpose. They're both really important. But man, I've been into music as long as I can remember. It's always been something that, you hear one good song, you hear a song that it can just pull you into this state of mind that you can't get from other things, And so within the confines of a yoga practice, you can carve out this incredible sonic landscape that you then match with the movement and the breathing and the philosophical message to where it becomes more of cultivating an entire experience that you can guide people through, to where it's not just movement, it's not just breathing, but it's an all-encompassing experience where you get straight down into the heart of this, and music is just something that is another super valuable tool. You can put together a playlist and just press play, and that might help you out, might help people get into a state of mind, but there's definitely a science and an art to putting something together that has really deep intention and meaning behind it, not just playing music for the sake of playing music, but more so for, again, creating a layer that helps clear out chatter in the mind, or helps drop them into a different state of consciousness and mind. I froth on music, man. And every Monday night, I teach a class called Flow Frequency that started here once we opened the studio. It's been something that had been in my mind forever. And it's just grown into this insane thing, And I teach it at festivals now. And I've been fortunate enough to get asked to play at these big events on big sound systems. And it's just, I don't know, I really feel that that's one of my favorite things that, I don't know. It just does something.
Yeah,
it does something for
it's in you. It's
for me in a selfish way, but in a non-selfish way. It's more of, I feel, one of the things that I like to give out to the world. It's like, here, let's move through this experience together. Not everyone may like it, but the people that do, they seem to be pretty stoked on it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's in alignment with what you're trying to do, is get people out of their mind into their body, but also into this intuitive, and that music is that language. It's not an analytical thing. It's a feeling, emotional vehicle. It's not an analytical vehicle. Music is an emotional art.
And it's always been used in yoga. It's like
kirtan.
Yeah, music and yoga have always coexisted in this beautiful synergy. And but what we do here is just is a modern take on it, you know. And like you remember when we first opened the studio, the first thing that went in there was a sound system. I was
Your
like,
speakers.
I was like, this place is going to get an awesome sound system, and I think that's really important as well, because the sound system that we put into the room it's custom spec for the room. It's made to hit as many frequency ranges that the human ear can detect, as well as other ones that you can only feel, like when you start getting into sub-bass frequencies, and like the subs that we have in the room go down to a ridiculously low amount. There's some of the lowest frequency subs that I could find, and so
sometimes in the kitchen, I can't hear anything, but things start rattling. That's when I know you've got. It's like,
totally.
Like, is there a ghost in here? Or is that Shawn just warming up the speakers?
But it's so awesome to have that ability to create a sound bath at the end of class, or even in the middle of class, wherever it's going to be, to where the music then becomes the center point. And our bodies are designed to interact with. We're interacting with frequencies right now. You know, like they're going into the mic. We're never not interacting with frequencies, and if you, I mean,
everything's vibration.
I say
use
it, man.
Huh?
You know? I say use it.
Yeah.
Run with it.
Yeah. Integrate with it. Yeah. Keep it fresh. What about on a health level, man? I know you're mainly about yoga and stuff like that, but has there been, apart from yoga, has there been anything that you've brought into your life that's made a big impact on your health, on your well-being, and generally, and things like that? Yeah,
yoga, if you truly follow the yogic path, then your diet is going to be a big part of that. You know, like the first thing that yoga asks, if you follow the 8-limbed path of Patanjali's, that his Ashtanga yoga system is ahimsa, which is non-harming and non-violence, and so yoga has led me to live close to a vegetarian life. I was a hardcore meat eater for years. Ate meat, devoured it from the time I was a kid, because that's just what was put in front of me. And still to this day, I'd be a hypocrite if I said it, I didn't eat it. There's times where if I'm hitting the gym, if I'm doing a lot of physical work on my body, then my body will just crave it. And so when I do eat, if I'm going to eat meat now, I try to eat the best sourced. I still feel guilty about it now, but that guilt is what's ultimately going to lead me when the time is right. I'll go months without eating it, and then there's times where I'm like, I'm going to eat some now. And it's sort of this thing where I like to be straight up about it. Last thing I'll be is hypocritical about my practice, but it's definitely changed the way that what I put into my body. So I eat way less. I would say I'm heading towards straight up veganism as it is, because of my responsibility and duty as a yogi, and as a somebody that has a sincere, dedicated practice to it, to ultimately move towards that. But I don't know, man. So
yeah, it's an interesting one, because I've been immersed in nutrition for 25 years now, studying it, and it's a squirrely one. It changes and changes and changes. And back in the day, it was plant-based and vegetarian, and then finally veganism had its day. And it's like, but I've been following the science hard. Yeah. And that's tricky, because if you're following the science hard and you're discriminating enough to be able to tease it apart and see what's real science and what's just a little bit off, man, it doesn't really line up with ethically what we want to do. Right. You know what I mean? And I think that's life. I really do. I think that's life. I know a lot of... I run a vegan restaurant. Been vegan... I was vegan for a long time, not now. I don't eat red meat. I don't eat... I try and eat bivalves, because I don't believe they have a brain. So I try and do the non-violent thing as well. But gee, I think it's a tricky one. I really do. Me and Em just got tested because I wanted to the DHA, the omega-3 fatty acid, DHA, that is the most important fat, if not nutrient, in the body, for the brain, for the ability to trap light into the body. And we're both into physics, right? We're both into quantum. So we're talking light and sound vibrations first and foremost. And there's a chemistry underlying that to trap this stuff, and it's DHA. And the vegan diet, we just don't get it. The omega-3s we get there, to convert into the DHA EPA, there's so many steps, and we know it's done really, really slowly. So I get tested, Em gets tested. You should be between 8 and 12 on this DHA spectrum. in the omega-3 spectrum, we were 4,
Wow.
which means we are permanently low-grade inflammation and our brain is shrinking before your very eyes. You know what I mean? Wow. It's not going to have the longevity. So here I am, it's like, God, man, I've dedicated 10 years to myself, not eating any meat, things like that, and because I want to, you know, but it's hard for me to sit here as a practitioner, as someone that's invested all my time in science, and say, it's the healthiest diet. So for me, it's a much more complex, bigger question. You got to meter your ethics with, you know. But anyway, bivalves, for anyone listening that wants to know, is the solution there, because mussels, clams, oysters, they have got no central nervous system, no brain, no scientific way that we can say, yeah, they're sentient. All things are conscious, but not all things are sentient. So, you know, I started eating them. I make them for my family, and because we've got 2 kids, I don't want their brains going to mush, you know. And we're getting their levels up. But, yeah, I think rule number 1 in food is medicine, just don't judge anyone for their dietary, you know.
Yeah, I definitely don't. You know, like if somebody's going to eat whatever they're going to eat, I'm like, cool, man.
You're cool,
More power to you.
But be conscious of it, like you are. You know, you're conscious of your philosophy, do no harm, and you know, because we have to tread lightly on this planet. We've got to respect animals and everything. Yeah. You know, so it's complex. That's all I'm saying.
It's weird because it's like, for me, it's a battle of what my body's asking for versus what my conscious is asking for. You know? So it's like, it's this. I know my body, when it craves something particular, it needs it. You know, it's like my body's way of going, you need to eat this right now because your body's lacking it or you're deficient in it. So it's sort of this unconscious way of my body going, eat that, but then I have my own little mental battles that I have to fight with it as well. But yeah, I'm not perfect, man. Like nobody is, but I have definitely experienced incredible shifts just to my health and well-being through my yoga practice. Yeah, I think the biggest shift is just my mental health, you know, and that's where it's still it's a daily battle, you know, like keeping my mind sound. As long as I'm moving, eating right, and sleeping, all those 3 fundamental practices, then my life is generally in a pretty good state of flow. But it's if one of those gets out, and the thing for me that will take a backseat when things get busy is my exercise and movement. You know, like I will do some form of movement every single day, but for me, there's no substitute for getting into, like, I love to take some other teacher's class, so I can just switch my brain off, become a puppet for their words, move my body in ways that I probably, when I take someone else's class, they're going to take me through movement patterns that I probably don't normally do, which, you know, the more of those patterns you explore through your joint surfaces, the better. You know, like, you're just going to make your mobility that much better. So important, man.
Yeah.
And, again, I see it for people that have been sedentary. They'll come into a practice after not doing anything for years, and it's almost, I love watching people like that. I like watching their journey unfold because they're going to get so much out of it just in like 3 to 6 months time.
Yeah. Hey, how much do you, because like from what I study and things like that, we somatize a lot of emotion, a lot of mental stress and things in the body. You know, we almost like trap it in the body or sense, and then that you start to see people posturing a certain way because of this way their mind is ruminating over certain subconscious thoughts and things. How much does yoga liberate that? I mean, how much if you can hold these shapes and then breathe and get this chi or the prana or whatever flowing through, and then what happens if people re-experience that? Are there many people crying up there? What's going on?
Daily. Oh my God. Yeah, the amount of tears that get shed in that room. That's what it's for. It's like it's a lot of the time, if somebody has an emotional experience in there, it's something that you want it to happen. You know, if
pretty courageous
if they feel they need to leave the room, if somebody ever wants. But I generally am pretty hands off, like, because I know it's more valuable for me to let somebody have that experience. I'll always be to make sure that they're okay. Yeah. But people's first reaction usually is to go and, you know, if somebody's going through an experience, to go up and take them out of it by giving them a hug. But I think it's really important to hold the space for somebody to. Sometimes that has been festering. Who knows what it could be from 20 years ago, stored in their cells, and then it might be a long hold, a breath, a word that's said that reactivates and somebody can have a huge release, an emotional release where they start crying. A lot of the time people just curl up in a little ball and, nobody's paying much attention. I mean, people are aware that it's happening, but I think everybody wants that space for that person to let it go, but it happens all the time, man. And
it kind of has to.
It's wonderful. It's a beautiful thing. It's one of the things when you see it happen, you're just like, you're almost rejoiced for the person. You're just like, yes, good, let that out.
Yeah, man, you're in it. This is an opportunity, a massive opportunity.
Yeah.
Because if we're saying, yoga is a transformational art, that is absolute bullshit unless there's going to be some sort of cathartic. Because we're both into the new physics, into quantum, and like, what is it? Second law of thermodynamics. You can't create or destroy energy. It just transforms.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of blocked energy in us because of pain, trauma. We can't forgive this, we can't get over that. That's trapped energy. And if you can have that process liberated amongst your community, man, you're going to come back tomorrow with a lot more energy.
For sure, man. And it's important to keep the space open for that and to make it a safe space for somebody to come work through life's crap, because we get a lot of people fresh out of breakups or out of a failed marriage, out of just, doctors send people to yoga practices when there's not much else they can throw at them. They're like, I don't know what else to do.
Try yoga.
You go do yoga. And so, you get people, you never know what somebody's going through on any given day when they come in to class. And so we always have to be sensitive and mindful to that, to where you just never know what somebody's going through.
And do you sort of educate your people, your community, that this happens? Is everyone aware that it's a safe place? If they do it, they can go with it if they can?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think people feel that it's pretty well accepted in there. It's what the room's designed for. And for, with that being said, for as many times where there might be an emotional breakdown or a release or anything like that, there's equally as many, if not more, just hoots and hollers and just screams and where we'll just shout and scream and it's just, it feels really good to just yell every now and then. So we'll get the whole room to just yell together.
Great.
As we're all in this huge collective consciousness, and we're all experiencing a lot of the same stuff at the same time. And it's interesting how the feedback you'll get after class is maybe whatever it is that I was talking about philosophy-wise. Somebody will come in and they're like, God, it felt like that was just for me. Was that just for me today? And I was like, man, most of the time it's for me. Like, I'm usually just self-coaching myself through my own issues. But we're all in it at the same time. We experience, look at what's happened on the planet this last year. Today is an amazing day for America as well, because we just got a new president, and I don't really get too political, but I have to drop that one really quick. That's a pretty good thing for the world, is to have somebody that's got a bit more of a heart and compassion and empathy in their soul to be running the planet, because that, again, all of that stuff that gets stirred up on the planet, we're all in it, whether we know it or not.
Sure.
It's
all connected.
It's in us. Yeah, it's in us. And so, yeah, man, it's a good day.
Yay for that.
It's a good day.
All right, man. Well, we'll do this again anyway.
Yeah.
And see what's happening in the yoga world and stuff like that. But what do you got coming up? You got philosophy classes coming up?
So the next, we run a regular event called Philosophy and Wine, and it's you come in, you bring in a bottle of wine. We'll provide the glasses there so they don't break. Make sure your wine has a cap on it so it doesn't tip over. But we basically use it as a night to get together as a community. It's like the night that you have with your friends.
Yeah.
But we do it with a bigger group of people, with the community. And so we come in. Do you have to drink wine to come in there? Absolutely not. You come in as is, but it's more of a social event to where we talk about yoga philosophy and how it's relevant to modern day life, to where myself and whoever else is in there, we're going to share a lot of our own experiences with life situations and the way that we've navigated them, using this ancient, incredible wisdom, and also using a lot of the new modern science and the modern wisdom that has research backed to promote well-being. And it's an awesome night. So the next one is coming up on January 30th. So if this goes out before then, if that sounds like your cup of tea, I've got the incredible Eric Schwartz, who's somebody that you definitely got to get on here at some point.
Yeah, he's great.
He's an amazing human. But he and I are going to get up there and share in this next.
So important, because a lot of us aren't having these conversations amongst our friends, family, or whatever, and yet it's essential for your health to have these conversations, to have them in the mind, have something to think about over the next 3 or 4 days after you have a.
Yeah. Totally, man. Teacher training starts for us in 2 weeks, so it's going to be a big 2 months.
Second one. Second one or third one?
Third.
Wow.
Third. So that's a big 2 months. It's pretty amazing. And then we'll run Flow Frequency Lives, where I get either DJs or producers to come in and they play the music live for a class, and we run those on Saturday nights as well. So just stay tuned for those, because they're just awesome, man.
Epic.
Really, really
so good.
Really, really cool. So
right, and that's all at yogalab.com.
.au. Yep. Check it out.
Yeah.
We've got Facebook and Instagram pages as well. If you want to see more of what I do on a regular basis, it's just Shawn Taylor Yoga on Instagram. But yeah, man, love being in here.
Yeah, bro.
Love being in this building.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing it with us.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
And hey, thanks for listening. And we'll see you again.
Peace. Love. Love you all.